Hi there and welcome back to the agrirouter API developer tutorial. My name is Frank and in this video we're gonna continue with transferring our file. We're gonna receive our file from the feed of our endpoint number 2, so the endpoint of CU2. I've already prepared a little bit of source code. Basically, I just took the basic project of the capabilities video and removed everything that is about sending capabilities. Additionally to the other videos where I use this basic source code as well, I moved the part of the fetch message response to a special function, as we're going to use this fetch message response multiple times because we have to do multiple steps to receive our file. Okay, so I've also written 3 to-dos. Of course, we have to add the corresponding responses to our request that we sent, to receive the file and store it. So our 3 to-dos that we have, I decided that I want to read the header information first. You do not necessarily have to do that. You could also just read all your messages. But in case you have a lot of messages and you are looking for a very specific one, for example, for a message of a special technical message type, you should request the header information and afterwards filter for the message IDs that you want. And then you can read the messages using those message IDs. After you read the messages, you have to confirm that you received those messages so that the messages are deleted from the feed of your endpoint. If you do not confirm your messages, after a while, currently it's set up for 3 weeks, your customer will receive an email informing him that there are old messages which will be deleted in 1 week and which have not been yet loaded by your application. So requesting the messages and then confirm the messages avoids that your customer receives such emails. So let's directly jump in and start with reading our header information. First thing we have to do here, as always, we need a service. So I think it's gonna be a message header service. It is a message header query service. And this one needs the environment. As always, I've already created the environment in the lines above. We're going to use the quality assurance environment. So what we will do with this one is we will send a message, and I assume we need some parameters again. Yes, we need some parameters. So let's call it message header parameters, and we can auto-generate that one. And let's see which parameters are required here. We can filter for message IDs, we can filter for sender IDs, we can filter for a time range in which the messages should have been sent to the agrirouter. And of course, we have to set our onboarding response so that our system knows which endpoint at the agrirouter it is talking. So we don't know the message IDs, so we will just add an empty list here. We would know the sender IDs, but I'm not going to filter for that by now. Let's just use an empty list. So we have the parameter sent from in seconds, and if we just set this one to 0, we basically get all messages. So we do not have any minimum time. And we have to set our set to in seconds. And I think everything that we received up to now is what we want to receive. So we do instant.now.getEpoch seconds, which is just our current timestamp. Last but not least, we have to set our onboarding response. And now I think, yes, we have set up everything. I can just delete this line and we're done with requesting our headers. So if we send the request for our headers, we will receive a list of messages, and I think we have to extend the possible answers in our fetch answer to analyze the result. So let's just start out here and let's see which parameters are available or which cases are available. And ag for feed header list sounds like that's what we're gonna do. That's what we will need. So here we're gonna receive our feed header list, and the message will include some header query response. And we're gonna pass this one from our payload wrapper. And let's create an import for that one. That makes it a little bit better readable. So now we read our header query response, and let's take a look what is inside that one. We have a list of feed messages. So let's just iterate through these feed messages. That's the wrong message type here. And let's see what is inside those feed messages. We have the list of our headers and a lot of counts. We have the receiver ID and we have the sender ID. You might wonder why we have a list inside a list. The reason is that the answer, so the feed message header list, is sorted by receiver and sender ID. The sender ID is from where the message is coming, and the receiver ID for a normal farming software is always the farming software itself. But for example, for a telemetry software or for a communication unit that reports machines, the receiver ID could actually be a virtual CU or a machine that is attached to a CU or a virtual CU. So for our usage here, as we just have a communication unit and we know that we did not report any machines, we do not have to filter for that. We can directly jump into the next list, so we can directly iterate through our get header list. So we have the header from the header query response, and we can simply iterate through that one. And now what we want to do is we want to filter for messages of the technical message type image bitmap. So we have to check if our header message type is technical message type bitmap. We receive a string here and we have to compare it with our technical message type, especially the string that is behind our technical message type. So we do technical message type dot img underscore bitmap. It's already here for auto completion. And even though you don't have an error here, it's important to know that you have to do the get key, because otherwise you would have img underscore bmp as a string. So we want to check for that one. And in case we found a message of technical message type bitmap, we want to do two things. Number one, we want to debug our message ID by doing header get message ID. It's important to know that the message ID is assigned by the agrirouter. This message ID is not equal to the application message ID. Message ID is created by agrirouter. Application message ID is created by your application. And what we want to do additionally is I created a list. It's called MSG IDs for bitmap. And I want to add our message ID here so that in the end we have a list of all the message IDs that include a bitmap. So once we are finished with that one, we could debug our list. And if we just comment the rest of the code, so our to-dos down here and the other fetch messages, we can give that one a try and check if there is already a file available. Here we go. We received an answer and we found one message that looks good. That looks like the message we want to receive. So then we can go on with the next step and actually read this message. So what we will need is a message query service. This one needs the environment as well. And as always, we're gonna call send and we'll need some parameters. We can auto-generate that one as well. And we should create some message query parameters. As you might have recognized, we have the same parameter type here as in the other function. So unimportant if you request the headers or if you request the actual messages, you will always need the message query parameters. So we can set the list of our message IDs, and that's our MSG IDs for BMP. The list of senders can again be empty. If the list is empty, that means that every sender is allowed. And our timestamp So we have to set the from and the to, and again it's zero as long, and again it's instant.now get epoch second. Last but not least, we have to set our onboarding response again, and we can send that one. And now we will receive an answer. So we will have to add the correct case for our switch case here to receive the answer for the message type or for the response type that we will receive. Let's see which one that could be. Ag for feed message. That sounds good. So we will receive a message query response here. And again, we have to pass that one from the payload wrapper. So let's see which parameters we have available here. Yeah, it is the get message list. So again, we receive a list through which we can iterate. And we have a minor error here. It's not gonna be a message, it's gonna be a feed message. Let's correct that one. And now we can iterate through our feed messages, and let's see which messages we can find here. Here you can see you can either get the header or get the content. And we will start with the header. And let's just output who sent this message. And which technical message type. Actually, we already know which one it's gonna be, but just to be sure. So normally we would do a switch case to find out which type of message it is, but we already know it's gonna be a bitmap, so we can directly get the content and write this one to a file. As you know, we base64 encoded our value or our file before we sent it over the agrirouter. So what we're going to receive as a content is going to be a base64 encoded string. Let's just get that one and transform it to a string. And it's gonna be a UTF-8 string. So we create our raw data from that. And we're gonna write it to a file. As we do not know if we might have multiple messages, let's just add some incremental values so that we can add some number behind the name of our file. Writing is quite simple. We can simply do files.write. Then we have to add a path. And we're going to call it output.bitmap with our counter. So plus count .bmp. And of course, we have to set the parameter raw data. And of course, as the backslash is an escape string, we have to do multiple escape strings. And now we should be able to write our file. Additionally, once we wrote our file, we should add this message ID to the list of message IDs that we want to confirm to remove them from the agrirouter. Now that we've done this, we should have received our file successfully, but to avoid receiving this one over and over again, we have to confirm the message and tell the agrirouter that we successfully received this message so that it can be deleted from the feed. So one last thing we have to do. We have to do the message confirmation, and it's gonna be a message confirmation service, which again needs the environment. And this one will be called the send function, and I assume again we will have some parameters here. We can auto-generate that one. We should assign an object. And this one will only have two parameters. Number one, as always, is our onboarding response. And number two is the list of messages we want to confirm. So now if we run that one, I've already opened our out folder here. And if we run our program, here we go. Last message we received was that some message was confirmed. Here we have the ID of this message that was confirmed. It's an egg with messages. That's why we receive the everything worked but. That one. And if we go to our folder, here we go, here is the file that we received. It's our image. And now to be sure that we confirmed everything, let's just go back to our code and let's have a look if we find some messages. So let's comment out all the other parts except for requesting the message headers, because we don't have any safety or security or tests if we actually received a list of messages and our application trying to receive messages might crash if we provide an empty list here. So we fetch our answer, but I think we're not really returning something here if we have an empty list. Further up, here we go. Yes, you can see there's only a system print line when we are in a loop. But if we never enter the loop because the list is empty, we will never output anything. So let's just add one line to output the length of this list. Now, if we run that one, here we go. As you can see, number of messages found in the header query 0. So it looks like that our message queue is empty, which means that we successfully confirmed our message. So, for the first version, this is the last video of our video tutorial. Maybe there will be more videos in the future. Please take a look at the GitHub pages and take a look at the YouTube playlist. In case this really is the last video in our tutorial, I want to thank you for going through the whole video. If you have any feedbacks or any further questions, please don't hesitate to send an email to support@myagrirouter.com or to file an issue in the GitHub repository. In case this is not our last video and there's more in the playlist, I'd say thank you for watching and hoping to see you in the next video.